Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Back at it again. It's the Football Playbook, TFB, with your boy RIC here on this Monday, October 3rd. We're soaring high with the Bird Gang, 5-0. Your only National Football League team that remains undefeated. Your first Philadelphia Eagles football team, 5-0 since 2004. First time that's happened in 18 years. And we ain't never scared. Here on the Football Playbook show, brought to you by Ocean Casino and Resorts. Thank you to the Ocean down there in Atlantic City for holding down the Eagles pre- and post-game. Buckle up. It's a double chin strap affair. To everybody in the chat room, listening, watching live, hit the like button. We got a really good show lined up for you today. Our good friend Martin Frank makes his cameo, Delaware News Journal. Of course, he was on location for the Eagles and Jaguars. Dougie P getting the standing O. Kudos to all you Eagles fans for doing the right thing. We'll also have Philadelphia's finest, his very own Howard Balzer, 11:30 each and every Monday. Oh, by the way, Eagles at Cardinals this Sunday. Howard, of course, covering the Cardinals for GoPhoenix.com. So we'll get an early jump start on Cardinals week. Dave Urban, by the way, tomorrow we'll be checking in. Shout out to Jeremiah Slasher in the chat room, waking up with us. Hassan Reddick has really got us rip-roaring, ready to go. But I'm going to start off with Nick Sirianni because he is the man, and it was a nasty football. Fall football is here. The October weather, the slush, the mud, the rain. We flipped the page from September. We win it with the finesse. We flip it to October. We win it with the what did Nick Sirianni call? He called it the gritty, the grimy, the tough victory for your Philadelphia Eagles. They're filthy after that win. And I say we're never scared because you took the Jaguars' best punch. You took their best shot. You fell down by 2 scores, and then you rallied back and scored 29 unanswered points. That, my friends, is what you call championship football. That, my friends, is what you call perseverance. That, my friends, is what you call pick your poison. We saw A.J. Brown in week 1, Jalen Hurts, week 2, Devonta Smith, week 3. Oh, it was the Miles Sanders train yesterday. It was Miles Sanders' turn to get in on the fun and put this team on his back in the rain. And fly with me, Miles Sanders, a career high, 27 carries, $134, averaged 5 yards per carry. Against, oh, by the way, the number 1 run defense in the NFL coming into the league. The Jaguars were just allowing 55 yards per game rushing. Miles Sanders doubled down. He almost tripled down on that. 4 runs of 10-plus yards. You saw him shake loose and get free in the passing game. And he's now 3rd in the entire National Football League with 356 rushing yards. But Miles Sanders, a career day. Buckle up. But it goes back to, it all starts with, in my opinion, and we'll get to Hassan Reddick in a second on the defensive side. I know the chat room's riled up with the hometown hero, but to me, this game starts, ends, and this season begins with and ends with Nick Sirianni. And he always references the season to a 17-round fight. I'll tell you what, we ain't never scared here in Philadelphia with Nick Sirianni, the head coach, because look at this first half of just gutsy play calling. Sometimes you gotta have the cajoons. And we talked about Dougie P coming back to town. The crowd was still trickling in there somewhat pregame and gave him the standing O. But he got by. You know, this new trend around the league. You listen to some of the games. It's a new trend. All these coaches going for it on 4th down. Well, that trend began with Dougie P during his time in Philly. And how about this? The Eagles down 14-0. And they come back first quarter, 4th and short on their own 32-yard line. We ain't never scared, Nick Sirianni. 4th and short on your own 32-yard line. He goes for it. Jalen Hurts, first down. Check it out. They come back. They go for it again. 2nd and 10 on the 47-yard line. They didn't convert this one. Incomplete pass. No skin off the back. Midfield. Okay. You might say Sirianni might be skeptical to do that again. No, sir, my friends. Second quarter, down by 14 on the 2-yard line, 4th and goal. Hey, Devin Lloyd, have you met my friend Jalen? Ha! The Hurts train. Buckle up. I told you I was conducting it. Hop on board. Steamrolls. Hurts steamrolls Devin Lloyd on a big 4th and goal. And that is where you kind of started to see the momentum change. Jalen Hurts brings them in within a score, 14-7. Miles Sanders keeps the chains moving. And then, right at the 2-minute warning, if you remember right before the first half, still a tie game, 2-minute warning, 4th and 1. Sirianni goes for it again. This guy's got freaking no guts, no glory, no risk and no biscuit. Sirianni, I can't imagine that there's a coach in the National Football League that goes for it more on 4th down this season. Brandon Staley will do a check. They go for it on 4th and 1 after the 2-minute warning. Hurts gets the first down, and then it's a Gainwell up the gut run. They missed the extra point, but Philly goes into the half up 20-14, and they never looked back, folks. They never looked back. 29 unanswered points. They get off the snide with points on the board in the second half. And the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, they looked like a deer in headlights. A deer in headlights was the one Trevor Lawrence. In fact, he is the first. Where's this one? Trevor Lawrence is the first player this century to lose 4 fumbles. I don't think it's happened in 30-something years. And that's kudos to Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon dialed it up again. And he had Trevor Lawrence so confused, pre-snap, post-snap, disguising coverages. Jonathan Gannon deserves a game ball, folks. And I got on Gannon early after that first game. Now it's time for me to give him his props because he had Trevor Lawrence looking like a high school quarterback again, you know? And I love what Jonathan Gannon did here. The big James Bradbury interception was with pressure. And he talked about it in the press conference leading up to the game, getting guys like Reddick, getting guys like Fletcher Cox in situations to wreak havoc. Don't look now. Oh, by the way, we've had an Eagles NFC Offensive Player of the Week. We've had a Special Teams Player of the Week. We've had a Defensive Player of the Week. I think Hassan Reddick, it might be your week. It's like an Eagles roll call with these player of the week. Jalen Hurts, your NFC Player of the Month. The accolades keep rolling in, folks. In fact, I know you guys are aware. Philly, the most educated fan base. You guys are on it. I know the chat room is on it. You guys were out in front of the Avonte Maddox injury on Friday. So I don't need to tell you because you already know. But for the national audience just tuning in and waking up to your undefeated Philadelphia Eagles, Hassan Reddick, the first player to have 2 forced fumbles and 2 fumble recoveries in the same game since 1950, pre-Super Bowl era. 72 years ago, Hassan Reddick. Oh, by the way, 2 sacks on the day. I think you might be getting a phone call or an email or a pat on the back, a tap on the shoulder in the locker room. I don't know how the NFL hands it out. But Hassan Reddick, my friend, dial it up. He is. I'll tell you right here on Monday, Hassan Reddick is your NFC Defensive Player of the Week. That's why they paid him the big bucks in the offseason. For games like yesterday. So, this Eagles defense is flying high. They are, I think I saw, the only team in the National Football League to have 5 players on defense with at least 2 sacks. They must lead the NFL in sacks. They have to. They had the number 5 ranked defense coming into the game. I would imagine they got to be close to 1 now. They had the number 1 offense coming into the game. I would imagine that didn't change. The Jaguars had the number 1 run defense coming into the game. Miles Sanders shredded them for a career high 134 rushing yards. Oh, by the way, our good friend Martin Frank, who's going to join us, in about 15 minutes or so, the content's been flowing over there at the Delaware News Journal. He's got about 3 articles since the end of the game. One of them discusses the Miles Sanders contract dilemma at the end of the season. And I'll ask him more about it, but he said based on Miles Sanders' comments after the game, maybe there's a silver lining in there that Miles Sanders understands. A lot of times these running backs hit the open market. They think the grass is greener on the other side. Maybe, just maybe, Miles understands that the offensive line and this team is built for Miles Sanders to succeed. So maybe Miles takes a hometown discount at the end of the year because you know what? They preserved him the first 3 games. They rode him in this 4th game. In fact, 27 carries is a career high. He's only got that total once at Penn State. So just the 2nd time in his career that he had that many carries, he shows us he can be the bell cow when needed. We'll ride that till the wheels fall off to the playoffs. It will be an interesting conversation for debate in the offseason, but we won't worry about that right now. Let's enjoy the process. Let's enjoy what Ric Serritella called a gritty, grimy, tough victory. And Showtime in the chat, you and I think alike, brother, because I know it's only week 4, week 5. I'm looking at this New Orleans Saints draft pick. Like, this could be a lotto ticket. Like, this could be the Eagles' ticket to Will Anderson. Because don't look right now. Not only are the Philadelphia Eagles flying high undefeated, they own that Saints draft pick that right now they're tied for the 2nd overall pick. Now, Showtime says it would be the 3rd pick, but really there's about six teams tied for the 2nd worst record. I think there's a team, I think the Texans might be 0-4. Otherwise, there's about a half a dozen teams that are 1-3, with the Saints being one of them. We talked about Michael Thomas only plays when he wants to. He's not going to be very motivated for a non-playoff team. They've already flipped the switch to Andy Dalton. This Saints pick could be a top 3. Could be a top 5. Talk about hitting the lotto. Imagine injecting a Will Anderson on the ball club. I know it's early. I know it's a long time down the road. In fact, I think it's 209 days away, but who's counting? Somebody is. Man, oh man, oh man. The Eagles, you just hope at this point, as you know, when you get to the playoffs, it's all about getting hot at the right time. You hope they don't bust the nut too early, right? That's what it's all about, is like, hey, can they really maintain this? There's going to be some downs. There's going to be some lows. You would think November 27th can't get here fast enough, because until then, everybody's going to say, oh, the Eagles didn't really beat anybody. Bull crap. That Jaguars team was good. They were so good, they went up 14-0, and the Eagles in the rain, down by 2 scores, came back, persevered, won, scored 29 unanswered. I don't care if it is the Houston Texans in the worst league. The NFL is too good of a league to just pull an ODB and be the first dog to poopy on your lawn. I mean, they are just dropping deuces on these guys. That was a hell of a comeback. Hell of a comeback. I got a lot of notes here we'll get into with Martin Frank in about 10 minutes or so. Couple game balls. How about Zach McPherson, Josiah Scott? They limit Christian Kirk to 2 catches on the day. Of course, that big 44-yarder on Josiah Scott. Now, Scott had his rough moments, but overall, 42 snaps. Zach McPherson, 44 snaps. They basically played the entire game. And Scott was matched up on Christian Kirk a lot, who was in the slot. Kudos to Gannon, but kudos to McPherson and Scott for stepping their game up. Big time performance. And we'll see if Martin Frank has an update on the Darius Slay forearm. Jordan Mailata, he left after 6 plays. He had a shoulder. Patrick Johnson, I think, is in the concussion protocol. And Seumalo had an ankle injury. So the Eagles got through the game, busted, banged up. They took their lickings, and they kept on ticking. I will say that Jamal Agnew, we talked about him about what a weapon he was in the return game. That Jamal Agnew, wow. He's got some wheels. He can make some big plays. I have him in my notes quite a few times making some big plays on offense. In fact, you can argue that he was their biggest playmaker and weapon yesterday, Jamal Agnew. Shout out to Sirianni, by the way, for the Roxborough High School shirt. So I had his son there in the post-game presser, raising some awareness there. But I think that this team showed their ultimate composure. They never panicked, and they took on the DNA. I didn't even I'm 20 minutes into the show. I didn't even mention Jalen Hurts, because this Eagles took on the DNA of their fearless leader, Jalen Hurts. He ain't never scared. A rare bad decision early on in the game with the interception. Bounces right back. They persevere. They keep it cranking. 29 unanswered points on 5 takeaways. You know, Miles Sanders' career day had a funny quote after the game. And he's exaggerating a little bit, but not really. He said, you know, I know that half the league is from the South. Speaking of the, you know, a lot of prospects coming out of the SEC. Southeast is a hotbed for football talent. SEC leads the league in draft picks every year. About 60 or so draft picks are from the SEC. Said, hey, down south, they got a lot of players in this league. He said, I knew that. And he said, playing in the rain, I know this. Those guys from down south, when it gets cold, they don't like to tackle. Ooh-wee! The Pittsburgh native throwing some dirt on some Southeast. You know, people give the Northeast a lot of flack, saying we don't have a lot of talent up here. Believe me, I can tell you because I live it.
What's good, Eagles fans? This is your guy, Tone. This is the second filling in for Ric Serritella. We are experiencing technical difficulty. You know, this weather, man, Hurricane Ian is kicking everyone's behind, and the storm has made its way to the Jersey Shore and the Philadelphia area. But I'm going to hold it down for you guys until we get our guy back in the hot seat. Now, man, you know, I want to touch on some things that, you know, that I know it was a good game. It was a good game, and you guys in the live chat brought up a very, very interesting topic that I feel like it needs to be addressed. When are we going to – well, let me put it to you this way. Are we going to put Dallas Goddard in that Butterfinger category? Are we going to put Dallas Goddard into the Butterfinger category? Now, look. Dallas Goddard is one of the more productive tight ends in this NFL. It's a fact. But we can't ignore the drops. We can't ignore the key drops. That's the thing. It's not just the drop, it's the key drops. Last season, remember, he dropped key third down passes. You guys brought it up. You guys brought it up in the live chat. Let me make sure I see who brought it up. I think it was my man, Scott Ritz or something like that. I can't remember who it was. But you cannot have those kind of drops. He dropped the ball. It was a gimme touchdown, was it not? The touchdown was literally in his hands. Look, quite literally. But he somehow, some way, he dropped the ball. Some people want to blame it on the weather. Some people want to blame it on the gloves. Look, I'm not trying to hear none of that. I'm just not. You cannot drop a ball in that situation. That touchdown seals the game. It completely locks the game away, and you'll never have to hear about it again. We need to have a conversation about Dallas Goddard when it comes to those drops. That's just me. But I'm going to bring my guy Rick back into the fold. That's something that's been on my mind, and I saw you guys bring it up into the chat in the chat room. And I don't take that lightly because it always comes at the most inopportune times. He dropped a really big catch on 3rd down from Jalen Hurts, one of his best throws of the season in that Vikings game. And he dropped a key touchdown pass yesterday. That can't happen. It just can't happen. But like I said, my man Rick is back in the fold. Let's see what's going on with my guy. Make sure he's alive and well.
What's happening, my man? Stay right there because we got Martin Frank coming up in just a minute. But to your point on Goddard, yeah, you know what? Again, you want to look at the silver lining of it. Let's get these early gyps out of the way early on in the season. And, I understand the concerns. That's why I say let's pump the brakes before we anoint Goddard as a top 5 tight end in the National Football League. I think he's a top 10. Top 5, a little bit too rich. I love his yard after catch ability, but let's give some credits to Goddard because he ate that zone coverage up yesterday. All he did was find the open seam all day long. It was rainy. It was nasty. So I don't want to make excuses for Goddard, Tone, but we'll give him a pass and let him get it out of the way early on. But just again, it's a reminder we can still get better. An undefeated 4-0 Eagles team, there's still room to get better and be more efficient because, again, Hurts will be the first to tell you they left money on the table there.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, Rick. I can't give him a pass. I just can't. I can't for the simple fact that you've been in the league for about 4 years now. You've been in the league for about 4 years. You're getting paid like a top 5 tight end. He has the 4th highest average annual salary out of all tight ends. The only guys that make more than him are Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Mark Andrews. And me personally, I think he's actually more dynamic than Mark Andrews. But you know what the difference is? Mark Andrews doesn't drop the ball. Every time you throw the ball Mark Andrews' way, he delivers. He's a legit red zone threat. So
he was nowhere to be found yesterday, though, Mark Andrews.
That is very true. That's absolutely true. And which goes to my point that he's not as dynamic as Dallas Goddard. Dallas Goddard is a much better route runner. He's much better after the catch. Dallas Goddard just knows how to get open better than Mark Andrews. But I think Mark Andrews has better hands. I don't think that's a debate because he doesn't drop the ball like that. But Dallas Goddard, you can't be making top 5 money, but you have bottom 5 brain farts. You can't do that. That's a key moment in the game. You had all the space and opportunity. You catch that ball in the end zone and you do your job. I'm sorry, I can't give him a pass on it. I love Dallas Goddard to death. I know it's early in the season, and like you said, let's get those bad things out of the way. But I can't.
Well, fair enough. I like it. I like you being tough on Goddard. And where are you on the AJ Brown tackle attempt? Then does he get a pass, or you're holding him?
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. If I'm being completely real, I didn't notice it at first. I didn't notice it until everybody pointed it out, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that does look kind of bad." I didn't like it, but he's a guy that has dealt with injuries in the past. Probably didn't want to put himself in that situation. I don't know. I don't want to give him an excuse. At the end of the day, you probably could have saved the touchdown. And there was a lot of sloppy tackling yesterday. I know the Eagles limited the Browns running game to about 70 yards or something like that. But if you watch that game from the beginning, they were allowing about 5 to 6 yards a carry. It's just that they couldn't. It's just that the Trevor Lawrence and those guys couldn't convert third downs. But they were able to move that ball, and tackling was a little shoddy. But overall, look, Dallas Goddard, he has the talent. We know he's going to get better. We know he's going to tighten up. I love AJ to death, but he has to be a little bit more. He has to be what's the word I'm looking for? He has to be a little bit more selfless in that regard. You know what I mean? So so many things to nitpick about this game. They won. It was a slop. It was a gritty victory, like you said. But again, so much more to discuss. I got Martin Frank is backstage. You want to hit it before we get to this break, man?
Yeah. Let's pay some bills. Don't go anywhere. You guys asked for another dose of Martin Frank. We delivered. We got him back. He'll join us right after the break to break down all the Eagles and Jaguars, talk about the Dougie Peterson reunion, and the Eagles with the gritty, grimy, tough victory down by 14 points, coming back to score 29 unanswered. We're just getting started on the football playbook. Ric Serritella, Tone DeShields here with you. We'll see you with Martin Frank right after the break. Smash the like button.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community, a sports roundup for the locals, and the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Since 1977 at Rafferty Subaru, we have always been about our customers and the community. Early on, a safe and durable option, we've evolved to become the best overall brand according to Kelley Blue Book. Over the last 14 years, we've donated thousands of dollars through the Subaru Share the Love event and found homes for hundreds of pets. The Rafferty family is proud of our 45 years in business. This month, celebrate our anniversary with special financing on select models. Visit us and see why.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
It's your boy TFB with RIC, Ric Serritella, telling it like it is when it comes to the National Football League and everything Eagles here on the Football Playbook. Your home for the Eagles pre- and post-game on JAKIB Sports channel. Make sure you click subscribe, get all our show notifications, hit the like button. It's all brought to you by Ocean Casino and Resorts. If you haven't gotten down to the gallery, make sure you get down on it. And, you know, we had our guest Martin Frank from Delaware News Journal last week. You guys said, hey, make sure you have him back. He's my favorite Martian. He joins us right now on the Football Playbook after Victory Monday. Martin, good morning. How are you today? Thank you for joining us once again.
Well, thanks. I think I finally dried off after yesterday. Great to be back. Thanks for having me again.
I was going to say, did you wring out the clothes after that one? Or I'll tell you what, I'm down here at the Jersey Shore. It started raining on Friday, Martin. It has not stopped. It's still raining here on Monday. I know it was constant throughout the game, and that's what Northeast football is about come fall time. But I want to start at the top of the game because this was a big storyline all week long. I don't want to glance over it. We debated, are the Eagles fans going to give Dougie P the standing ovation he deserves? It looks like they clearly did. I did not recognize any boos at home watching it on TV. If there were, it was very faint. But it looks like the fans were still trickling in, but the ones that were in attendance stood up and praised Dougie the way that we thought they would.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened when the Jaguars came out on the field just before the game. You know, Doug Peterson was walking with the team and stuff, and all the fans stood up and cheered for him and gave him a nice ovation. And, you know, Doug kind of did this, kind of clapped his hands towards the fans. I think I was kind of surprised that people were kind of wondering if they would give him a reaction, like a negative reaction or not. I mean, the guy coached the team to the only Super Bowl in team history. I mean, yeah, the last season was kind of a travesty and everything like that, but Doug gave him 5 good years. They made the playoffs in 3 of them, 3 straight. He did a good job, and he's obviously got the Jaguars playing well. Yesterday notwithstanding, I mean, they're 1 win away from tying their total win output from last year and everything. He's got a good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, developing much the way he did with Carson Wentz in his second year and stuff. So, I'm not surprised that the fans gave him a reaction. I was surprised that there was even a debate that they would give him, a bad reaction and stuff. So, it was just kind of like.
Yeah, I think it was a week before the Boo Birds were down in D.C. They gave Wentz the business post, halftime. They were booing him off the field. And, then Doug in his presser, I think leading up to the game, he said, hey, I'm hoping it's receptive, but he said it is Philadelphia, so anything is possible. He gets it, right? He gets it. So
yeah, definitely.
And I would say the Jaguars did play a good game. It's just that the Eagles are playing elite, and the Jaguars jumped out to this big 14-0 lead. They got punched in the mouth. The Eagles did, but they showed perseverance. They showed grittiness, as Ric Serritella said. They showed that they can play from behind because they hadn't fallen down since week 1 against Detroit. And even when Jalen Hurts makes a rare poor decision early on in the game and throws an interception, this team never lost composure. They never lost focus. In fact, Ric Serritella never even hesitated to go for it on 4th down early on in the game, despite being down. And Jonathan Gannon, again, never took his foot off the gas. So I think Jaguars are a good team. They're ahead of schedule. They just ran into an Eagles team that is the only undefeated team in the NFL for a very good reason, Martin.
Yeah, and you mentioned like a couple really key words there. One, grittiness. I mean, talk about like a gutsy win. I mean, you're down 14-0. The conditions are awful. You lost 2 key players to injury on the first drive, in the first possessions pretty much, and Darius Slay and Jordan Mailata. And, here they are going for it on 4th down from their own 30-yard line, converting that. Jalen Hurts on 4th, and they're down 14-0. They're at the 3-yard line with 4th down. Jalen Hurts takes the ball up the middle, gets blasted by Devin Lloyd, and still manages to find his way into the end zone. A lot of people overlook that, but if the Eagles don't score there, they turn the ball over on downs. They're still down 14-0, and everyone's like, why didn't you kick a field goal? Why didn't you kick the field goal? But instead he gets in somehow. They're down 14-7, and, they're right back in the game. And, that kind of was, to me, the key play of the game right there, like getting that touchdown on 4th down from the 3-yard line. So, just stuff like that. I mean, the way Miles Sanders ran all day, basically, they showed a lot of guts, and that was kind of like how they were winning games back in 2017 when they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, guys get injured. Guys like Jack Driscoll, he had never played left tackle in the NFL before. He plays a great game. Isaac Seumalo leaves in the 4th quarter. Sewell Pettis steps in, hasn't missed a beat. Darius Slay goes out pretty much for the entire game. I think he played 3 plays maybe. And Zach McPherson, comes in and pretty much does a good job, It's stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of like, it's kind of eerily similar to how they won games in 2017, and you're seeing a lot of that. They just have a lot of character, a lot of guts, and a lot of grittiness, as you pointed out.
Yeah, I think the players you just mentioned didn't get enough credit because Driscoll played 76 snaps, did a great job. Opeta played 20 snaps and filled in admirably. But we mentioned Slay going down. McPherson played well. Josiah Scott, he got picked on a little bit. I saw Christian Kirk with that big play, but a couple penalties here and there. But, I mean, give Josiah Scott some kudos. And we talked about the depth of this Eagles roster. I mean, they are deep at almost every position now. I want to go back to these fourth downs because you said the 4th and goal with Hurts and the Devin Lloyd was a big play. Also, right before halftime, after that 2-minute warning, they went for it again on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
Hurts got the first down right before that Gainwell up the gut run. And that, to me, was a big statement because that put them up at halftime. They missed the extra point, but they go into halftime up 20-14 after being down 14-0. And I don't think they ever looked back after that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder like how much of that was because of the conditions. Like, if you want to try like a 35, 40-yard field goal in that kind of weather, with the rain going sideways, the winds gusting 25, 30 miles an hour. But, Sirianni has showed that pretty much throughout his tenure that if it's like 4th down and a couple yards and stuff, they're going to go for it. I mean, they have a great quarterback who can sneak the ball up the middle and gain like 1 or 2 yards just following Jason Kelsey. They can run the ball with Sanders. They can do a lot of different things. So it's not totally surprising that they went for him 4th down. It does show guts and they made it. Jacksonville knew it was coming. I mean, I don't think they were surprised by the fact that the Eagles like to go for it on 4th down. I mean, that's kind of what Doug Peterson did when he was the Eagles coach too. So it's not like totally out of character. It's not like they weren't prepared for it. So, they made it work.
They did make it work, and they are now, again, the only undefeated team in the NFL, 4-0 for the first time since 2004. Martin Frank, Delaware News Journal, with a slew of articles already up there on the website. Make sure you go and check out all the articles he has. We'll get into the Miles Sanders one in just a second. I think you were the one that mentioned, though, they haven't been 4-0 in 18 years. And, if we go back and look at that team, they had Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook, T.O., Todd Pinkston, Fred X, L.J. Smith, that tight end. McNabb had 34 touchdowns and 8 interceptions that year. And you could make the comparison like this might be the best supporting cast or offensive cast of characters that we've seen since that team. And I'll take McNabb and Westbrook over Hurts and Sanders, but I'll tell you what, this A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goddard, they can rival that 2004 team. This is a lot of firepower, no?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, A.J. Brown has made like such an incredible difference, offensively. I mean, I wouldn't put him in the T.O. class because T.O. is one of the best wide receivers to ever play this game. I think he's like 2nd or 3rd all time in yards receiving. And, A.J. Brown isn't quite that, but he's pretty darn good. And then, I think there's more depth. When the Eagles had T.O., you mentioned Todd Pinkston and Freddie Mitchell, but those guys aren't, the caliber of receiver that Devonta Smith, Dallas Goddard are. And, Jalen Hurts is 24 years old, and maybe he's not quite at the level that McNabb was at that point, but McNabb was a little bit older. This was like his 4th or 5th year in the NFL and everything. So, Matt McNabb had the experience factor on it. But, yeah, there are a lot of similarities. You look, the Eagles have historically tried to build their team through the offensive and defensive lines. And even in 2004, they had a great offensive line, John Runyon and Trey Thomas, and defensive line. I think they had Javon Curse and, a bunch of other guys. So it's similar in that respect too. I mean, there's a formula that works, and, the Eagles have tapped into it. At least this year, it seems to be paying off so far. I mean, it's 4 games, so you don't want to like get way ahead of yourself or anything like that. But, they're going to be hard to beat. They have so many different ways that they can beat you. And we saw another example of that, like in a rainy, miserable, windy day. They found a way to keep pounding.
That's right. Yeah. Martin Frank here, Delaware News Journal. I think McNabb, with the decision-making, 34 touchdowns that season, just 8 interceptions. You're seeing Hurts kind of come into his own there with making smart decisions. But, you're right. In the face of adversity, they learned how to beat you a different way. Last week, Shane Steichen said, hey, it was great for us to lean on the pass and win that way. Well, this week, They won on the run. The Jaguars were number one in the entire NFL. They only allowed 55 yards rushing a game through the first 3 games. Here comes Miles Sanders, career high in carries, 27, career high in rushing yards, $134. Oh, by the way, our friend Trey Sermon was in there getting a little bit of action too. But Miles Sanders is a big time story. He said half of the league is from the South. And when it's cold, the South doesn't like to tackle. He said, I knew that, and I took advantage of that. And you wrote a very interesting article on Miles Sanders that's up on the website now. And in that, you talked about some of his comments about the offensive line. The Eagles are going to have a big decision on a lot of free agents at the end of the season. If Miles Sanders keeps playing the way he did yesterday, they're going to put the Eagles and Howie Roseman in a predicament because, there's only so much cash that can go around, right?
Yeah, and also, I mean, they don't like to pay for running backs because running backs typically have a pretty short shelf life in the NFL. And, Sanders is in the last year of his rookie contract. He's had some injury problems and everything like that over the past few years. So, what's his value? I think the Eagles have a certain figure in mind that they're not going to go over, and there might be a team out there that says, hey, we're going to pay for Miles Sanders, and, then it'll be up to Miles Sanders. Does he really want to leave a situation like this where he's got, a great offensive line to run behind? He's got a great quarterback in Jalen Hurts who makes his job easier because Hurts is such a threat running the ball as well, and teams have to account for that, and that's one less person that could handle Miles Sanders. And we saw lots of examples of that. Like, yeah, the Eagles ran the ball 50 times. Yeah, they rushed for 210 yards and everything like that, but it wasn't like the conventional way where they just, gave it to the running back. Everybody knew it was coming. They did it in a way in which, Jalen Hurts has to be accounted for. So, like, if he does an inside handoff to Miles Sanders and keeps going to the outside, there's a defender that has to stay with Hurts as he runs to the outside. And that, takes away one person who could possibly tackle Miles Sanders. So if Miles Sanders breaks a tackle, he's got one less defender to worry about. So that's kind of like when people say, oh, the Eagles just pounded the ball. Yes, they did, but they also did it in an unconventional way because of Hurts' threat. And Miles Sanders has to appreciate that. Obviously he did with crediting the offensive line, and he has with, crediting Jalen Hurts and everything too. But, if Miles Sanders leaves, he's not going to be in a better situation than he is now with the Eagles. And that's kind of like the crux of it. Maybe Miles Sanders can get some more money somewhere else, but he wouldn't have a better situation than he does here.
I would agree with that, Martin. And we saw 55 snaps yesterday, 27 carries, Gainwell 22 snaps, and then Trey Sermon only 5 snaps, but he made them count. He had a couple of nice plays there. I think a big run with a face mask called. And when he came into the game, the Eagles try to get the ball in his hands. Again, Boston Scott out. Sermon gets a little bit of the taste, 5 snaps. He might be that bigger back that the Eagles are trying to look to fill that void. Do you think we see more of a Trey Sermon moving forward? And what happens when Boston Scott comes back, because they can't keep 4 active running backs, right?
Right. Obviously another good problem to have. I was always, the 49ers drafted Trey Sermon in the 3rd round last year, and they gave up on him after 1 year. So it kind of like raises an eyebrow, why would the 49ers do that? If they invest so much in a 3rd round pick to give up on him after 1 year. So, maybe the Eagles can find something that the 49ers couldn't last year and everything like that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting problem to have. Boston Scott comes back. Does Trey Sermon, keep getting some carries? Does Kenny Gainwell, lose some carries and everything like that? It's obviously a good problem to have, with depth and everything like that. But, we saw last year when they had Jordan Howard, Kenny Gainwell was typically the odd man out. And I would think if Boston Scott comes back, it might be the same case, this year, as long as, Sanders and Scott and Sermon are healthy. It just, Kenny Gainwell does provide value in the sense that he's a good receiving back on third down, passing situations and everything like that. But I think Sermon and Scott are more dependable. Maybe they're bigger backs. They can kind of gain some yards here and there when you need them on first and second down. And, it'd be interesting to see how it all plays out. And we'll find out soon enough, I guess.
Yeah, the chat room tends to agree with you when it comes to Kenny Gainwell. And, Sermon, I think, was 88th overall. I know he battled some injuries there coming out and during his time in San Francisco. Coach John DeFilippo was on with us Friday. He made a good point. Mike Shanahan used to always pluck these running backs off the street, these undrafted free agents, Orlandis Gary, Mike Anderson, the list goes on and on. Kyle kind of doing a lot of the similar things in San Francisco. If you look at Jeff Wilson and guys like Matt Breida in the past, I mean, he feels like the running back position is indispensable, which makes you wonder why they drafted a running back so high to begin with.
Exactly.
But, you do. I liked Sermon coming out of Ohio State. He was an electrifying player. So I like the roll of the dice by Howie Roseman here. Sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle. A fresh start could do a lot of good. And we're talking to Martin Frank, who always brings a lot of good to the football playbook. I know a lot of Eagles fans are concerned with the injuries yesterday coming into the game that occurred during the game. We talked about Boston Scott was out. Avonte Maddox was out. Darius Slay plays 3 snaps. He came into it with, I believe, a lingering back injury. Then he leaves with a forearm. He was in and out of the injury tent there, Martin. Have you heard any updates on Darius Slay in terms of the forearm?
I haven't today, but saw him yesterday in the locker room. When we were all talking to James Bradbury, and we were asking him like, "How's the arm? You okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good." So it didn't seem like it was anything serious. I mean, I kind of get the sense that he'll be able to play next week. We'll be talking to Nick Sirianni later this afternoon and hopefully get an update from him. But it didn't seem like a serious injury. So I would tend to think that he'd be okay for next week.
Yeah, in fact, he was in a joking mood. Was he the one that was asking, "Hey, you got to ask Bradbury why the Giants let him go"?
Exactly. Yeah, it was right around that time. He was. We were asking Bradbury about his game, and Slay was right next to him, saying, "Hey, you guys are asking the wrong questions. You got to ask him why the Giants ever let him out the building." So, he's got a point.
Well, I can answer that one for you. It's 2 words: David Gettleman.
Yeah, I know.
When you got $48 million in dead cap money, and you're paying guys like Kenny Galladay $18 million a year, Bradbury was just a cap casualty. They would have loved to have him, but the Eagles reaped the benefit there for sure. But I thought that was a good lighthearted moment after the game. Jordan Mailata, he, as you mentioned, 3 or 4 snaps, 6 snaps, and then he leaves the game with the shoulder injury. It sounds like if it was a playoff game, he may have played or re-entered the game. It's earlier on in the season. Was this a more precautionary thing, or is this something that could linger long term, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Shoulder's a tough injury, especially for an offensive lineman. I'm hoping we get more of an update today. I mean, he seemed like I saw him in the locker room yesterday. He seemed okay. Like, it wasn't in a sling or anything like that, which, to me is a good sign. But he might have to miss some time. I mean, we'll hopefully find out more from Sirianni later today. But they do have an interesting dilemma. I mean, as well as Jack Driscoll played yesterday and everything, I mean, Andre Dillard can come off IR, as soon as this week. And, if he's ready and up to speed and everything like that, and Mailata has to miss like a week or 2, I mean, do you put Andre Dillard in there? Do you keep Jack Driscoll in there? I mean, how do they handle that? It'd be interesting to see because before the injury, I mean, Andre Dillard was playing pretty well in the preseason and everything like that. And he's probably good enough to start on a number of teams in the NFL. So, that might be another dilemma. I mean, it's obviously a good problem to have, and it shows how deep that offensive line is. I mean, they can just plug in player after player and keep dominating and running the ball and throwing and everything like that. I mean, I saw a stat that Lane Johnson, Kelsey, and Driscoll, maybe something like that, like didn't allow a single pressure or hurry, let alone a sack. So, I mean, those guys pretty much just dominated Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think I saw in your article too, Driscoll hadn't played tackle since his days at UMass, which was, 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
So very
I
interesting.
mean, you've been doing that in practice and everything because, Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach, likes to cross-train guys at different positions. So, it wasn't totally unexpected that, he'd have to play left tackle if something happened to Mailata, but, he hadn't done it in the NFL. So, it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if Mailata's hurt and has to miss a game, it's not the worst thing. Maybe you start Andre Dillard and shop him for a trade chip. I know Rashard Penny's a guy that's been dangled there in Seattle going into his last year, had a big day yesterday. Maybe Trey Sermon's performance maybe erases the need for a bigger back, but Dillard for Penny was brought up on this show last week. Could be in the cards. We shall see. Martin Frank, I know you got to go soon. Just a couple more questions sticking with the injuries. Patrick Johnson looked like he was in and out of the game with a head or concussion. Looks like he's going to be entering the concussion protocol. Is that accurate?
Yes. I mean, I think especially after last week with Tua, there's going to be like little wiggle room as far as, a head injury or concussion and everything like that. So I think Kyron Johnson, another linebacker, also suffered a head injury. So, yeah, they're going to have to go through the protocol. I mean, whether or not they can play next Sunday against Arizona, that would be probably won't be determined until later in the week. But, yeah, those two definitely are in the concussion protocol, and we'll see how long that takes. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I think like with everything that happened last week, teams are going to be extra careful, or the NFL is going to be extra careful to make sure these guys are fully cleared before they can play.
Yeah, I think the NFL and NFLPA implemented the Tua rule, and I'll talk more about that after the commercial break. And I mentioned the Mailata injury. I should have stayed on the offensive line with Seumalo. I know he left with an ankle. We mentioned Opeta played 20 snaps, Seumalo 62 snaps. What's the latest on Isaac Seumalo's ankle there? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I didn't really see him yesterday and everything, and haven't gotten an update. But another interesting question is, they put Sua Opeta in there, and they have Cam Jurgens, the second round pick, who, he's being cross trained at guard as well as center. So I was kind of curious as to why he didn't get a chance, but maybe that changes as if Seumalo's out for a couple weeks or something like that. We'll see. Again, it's another example of their depth. I mean, they can plug in a second round draft pick, but they didn't.
Well, I'll be looking forward to your questioning with Nick Sirianni today later on in the press conference, Martin. So, hey, you've been ever so kind to join us here for a second consecutive week on the Football Playbook. We hope to have you back. Tell the listening audience at home, I know you already got the content flowing at the Delaware News Journal. I saw you put out a couple articles since the game ended. What do you got on deck for us?
Well, I mean, we're going to be talking to Zach Ertz later today. So, there'll be a story on Zach Ertz probably tomorrow morning on DelawareOnline.com. More follow-up.
Another old friend that we're
it's like the reunion season. It's like every week, first it's Carson Wentz, then Doug Peterson, now Zach Ertz. So it'll be interesting. I mean, Ertz is doing well out there in Arizona, as one would expect, and he's got a lot of ties to the Philly area. He's well beloved in the city, and I'm sure it's going to be kind of a bittersweet experience for him to play against his former team, to see Dallas Goddard, having the role that he used to have and everything like that. So, reunion season rolls on.
The reunion tour rolls on from Wentz to Dougie P to Zach Ertz, and we'll have Howard Balzer on actually in the second hour, who covers the Cardinals. So we'll get an update on Ertz. Before we let you go, Martin, I got so caught up in the Eagles' big victory. I forgot to look ahead. We got the Arizona Cardinals on the road, cross country. Little bit of a surprise. The Eagles opened up, I think, as like a touchdown favorite on the road in Arizona, who beat the Carolina Panthers yesterday. I know it's early in the week. You don't have to give an exact prediction, but what's your take on this game? Is this a litmus test game? Is this a sneak up game, or is this a game the Eagles should win handedly?
I think it's going to be a tough one for the Eagles. I mean, they have the Cowboys the week after that. I mean, I'm not saying they're looking past the Cardinals or anything like that, but Arizona's got a really good offense. The one thing in the Eagles' favor is they don't have to worry about DeAndre Hopkins, who's still serving his suspension. But, Kyler Murray can do pretty much everything that Jalen Hurts can. He's tough to handle. He can run. Like, I remember the game a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a 2-point conversion. He ran around for like 20 seconds, ran all the way back to the 20 and then somehow found his way in the end zone. I mean, he's going to be tough for the defensive line to handle. I mean, the Eagles are going to have to find a way to kind of slow him down. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I haven't really delved into it too much, but just from the looks of it, it's going to be a tough game for the Eagles. It'll be, and as gutsy as they were to pull out this game against Jacksonville, I think they'll have to do that again if they want to beat the Arizona Cardinals.
We know this. The Cardinals can put a lot of points on the board in a hurry. And, I know one thing that Jalen Hurts has got his eye on is that Kyler Murray contract, 46.1 per year. If he can beat Murray, mano a mano, right? It just continues to state his case for the offseason negotiations. And somebody in the chat room was quick to remind us, maybe we can have you back next week for Jason Peters week when the Cowboys.
That's right. Another one, Jason Peters, right.
The reunion tour keeps on rolling. Hopefully we can have you back. He's my favorite Martian, Martin Frank, Delaware News Journal. Thank you so much, Martin.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right. He's dropping knowledge here on the Football Playbook. That was Martin Frank. Does a great job for the Delaware News Journal Online. Of course, he was down there getting all soggy with it. Wet and wild. It was a slip and slide affair with the Jaguars, the Eagles. We've been breaking it down, chopping it up. I can't believe we got an hour of power in the books. Is this true, Tone? I can't believe it. If you like what you're listening or watching, hit the like button, smash it, mash it, bash it. Please show your boys some love. It's all brought to you by Ocean Casino Resorts, your home for the Eagles pre and post game. We've got Howard Balzer coming up in hour 2. Of course, GoPhoenix.com covering the Cardinals, Philadelphia brethren who will join us, talk about the Eagles, talk a lot about the birds. We'll talk about the Eagles. We'll talk about the Cardinals. We'll go around the league with some NFL, and we'll get more news and notes from the Eagles game, in addition to some news and notes from around the league here on the Football Playbook when we come back right after this.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
The faces you know, the team you trust. The Delaware Valley's leading news program, Action News.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Fired it up. It's the Football Playbook TFB with your boy RIC here at the Jersey Shore, broadcasting around the universe. Thank you for waking up with us. Counting you down. It's about that brunch time here on the East Coast. We got a 1 hour power down, 1 hour of power to go until the sports take guys take over at noon Eastern, followed by your boy Big Sills, the National Football Show from 3 to 6, 12 hours of live content each and every day here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Thank you for everybody who's tuned in, subscribed, hit the like button, get at you. Couple of news and notes here with the Eagles I want to touch base on. They are now, believe it or not, the favored. They are the NFC favorites, according to the gallery down at Ocean Casino and Resorts. The gallery sportsbook in Atlantic City has the Eagles at a 3-1 favorite to win the NFC. Oh, by the way, their over-under win total, if you jumped on it before the season started, which we advised you to do at the Football Playbook, it was at 9.5. Just a month ago, it was at 9.5. Now, Ocean Casino and Resorts Sportsbook Gallery, over-under is at 12.5 wins. So you snooze, you lose. What a difference a month can make. The odds makers now have the Eagles win total at 12.5. So they are thinking this is a 13-win ball club. And you know what? Anytime you travel cross-country against the Cardinals, it's going to be a challenge. Kyler Murray can light up the scoreboard like the 4th of July. We know that. We'll talk more with Howard Balzer in about 20 minutes or so about that. They're favored every game the rest of the way. So to me, November 27th, which I think is a Sunday night football game, primetime versus the Packers. Hey, that's going to be the game that gives us the true barometer, because Eagles are 3-1, Packers are 4-1, Bucks are 4.5-1, and then the Rams are 5-1. You want to throw the 49ers in the mix? It's a 5-team hunt in the NFC. Everybody else is a pretender. Believe it or not, it was the Vikings, not the 49ers, that were the next favorite team after the Rams. So to me, the NFC is down to 5 teams. Everybody else is a wankster pretender. The Eagles, Packers, Bucks, Rams, and 49ers maybe are contenders. In fact, we got the Rams and the 49ers tonight. We'll talk more with our NFL insider, Howard Balzer, on that one. And, you know, I've got some power rankings. I got some NFL news and notes. Let me go with the news and notes first. The Cowboys, They are 3-1. Cooper Rush is 4-0 as a starter. Kurt Warner is the last undrafted free agent quarterback to do that. So Cooper Rush is in rarefied air. The Cowboys will take on the Rams this week. I think Dak Prescott's coming back. So the Cowboys are not going to go away. They're going to be in that wild card contention, as can the Giants be, who are now suddenly, don't look now. The Giants are 3-1 with their win over the Bears. Old friend Landon Collins is in for a visit today. Landon Collins coming back to Jersey, possibly. He flew into Newark this morning for a visit. You know, Landon Collins was cooked with the previous regime when they got rid of him. Then he went to Washington. This guy can't cover. He could still maybe be an asset in the run game. Good in the box safety. Landon Collins, there's a reason why the Commanders didn't bring him back. There's a reason why the Giants got rid of him the first time, last regime. It just goes to show you the Giants must be desperate at the safety position if Landon Collins is in for a visit today. You know, I mentioned the Tua rule. I didn't read the fine print on it, but I'm glad the NFL and NFLPA came to their senses, got together, and changed the protocol. I don't know the exact details of it, so I don't want to speak on it today. Maybe we'll get into it more tomorrow. But it shall be called the Tua rule because we mentioned on, Friday's show, how ridiculous was that? So Landon Collins in visiting the Giants. We talked about the Saints have the second worst record in the league or tied for it. So the Eagles have their pick. That's looking real good. I mentioned the Giants, Saquon Barkley. I won't go as far as our friend Jeff Kerr, like he called him on this morning's Good Morning NFC East show, the best running back in football. I don't know if Saquon Barkley is that, but he is back to his pre-ACL form. Saquon Barkley, he looks like he's back. And the Giants offense with Daniel Jones, it looks like the old wishbone offense. That Giants offense is terrible. As soon as Tyrod Taylor's healthy, I expect to see him in at quarterback for the New York Football Giants. Carson Wentz, I mentioned. What are they, 1-3 now? By week 10, Carson Wentz might not be the starter. Cowboys aren't going away. Dak Prescott comes back. J.J. Watt with the medical situation. He put out a weird tweet before the game saying he had an APAP done, something defibrillator, some kind of heart situation going on during the week. And he winded up playing. I didn't ever see a big story break, but J.J. Watt doing his own policing on social media. I thought that was a little bit strange. Justin Fields in that Giants game, by the way, going into it, the Bears scouts and GM has been spotted at all the big-time college quarterbacks, and I'll get into that more tomorrow. Bryce Young with the sprained MCL, Will Levis with the debacle there at the end of the game against Ole Miss. The Chicago Bears are monitoring all these quarterbacks, by the way. Justin Fields had his ankle rolled up on him during the game, but there's already growing frustration out of Chicago. GM Ryan Poles, who's very young, very inexperienced. I don't think he deserved that job, but you talk to people inside the community, they have nothing but praise for Ryan Poles. I think he's a little bit in over his head, but the Bears are sniffing around quarterbacks, so the Justin Fields experiment could be over. The Baker Mayfield experiment could be over because Matt Rule could be out of here. The seat continues to get hotter for Matt Rule. Sam Darnold eligible to come off the PUP this week. There's some talk Darnold could start over Mayfield. Carolina Panthers are a team going nowhere fast. Only thing I'm worried about Carolina, can they overtake the Texans for the number 1 overall pick? Javonte Williams suffers a serious knee injury, so the Broncos Broncos pull off the W there, or no? The Broncos lost to the Raiders, was it? And they lose their running back Javonte Williams, so that's a big loss for this Broncos team in transition. They lose 32-23, and they lose their starting running back. And then how about Jason Pierre-Paul, JPP siding in Baltimore? You know, to me, that Ravens-Bills game, what a game. And to me, for as great as Lamar Jackson has been playing, it told me why Lamar Jackson's still playing for a big money contract, and it showed me why Josh Allen is that big money quarterback. Because at the end of the game there, Lamar Jackson threw a costly interception. Granted, he had some plays downfield in the passing game, but Josh Allen willed that team to victory. And we've seen Lamar Jackson now falter in these big games, especially in the playoffs. That's probably the hesitancy of making Lamar Jackson a $50 million quarterback. Can't win a playoff game. Can't win a big-time game in a big-time spot. We saw it again yesterday. Costly interception down the stretch. Josh Allen showing why he is probably... Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts are probably the front runners for the MVP right now, 1 and 2. I'll say that. But to me, Josh Allen proved why he's a $40 to $50 million quarterback. Lamar Jackson, still not so sure, man. Can you win the big game? And then, you know, here's another thing that caught my attention here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm looking at you, Mike Tomlin. And, you know, Mike Tomlin's a great coach. We give him a lot of credit. I got to call Mike Tomlin out on this one, because I've been trying to tell him he clearly is not a fan or a viewer of the Football Playbook show. But I've been telling him, Kenny Pickett's your guy. It's time to go to Pickett. Because we know who Mitchell Trubisky is. And so suddenly, early on in the game yesterday against the New York Jets, what a wild game. Goes to show you what a game of inches the National Football League is. And your starting quarterback is so important because, you know, Mike Tomlin blew this one. He blew it to the Jets 24-20, and he blew the quarterback decision because here's the deal, guys. If you knew Trubisky was on a short leash, why did Pickett get zero first-team snaps in the week leading up to the game? And oh, by the way, the Steelers had 10 days, 10 days in between games to prepare for this game against the Jets. Kenny Pickett, according to the beat writers there in Pittsburgh, got zero first-team snaps leading up to this game with 10 days to prepare. That's a poor job by Mikey T. Mike Tomlin, we don't criticize him often. We don't criticize him much. That's a poor job. And don't look now. The Pittsburgh Steelers season is heading nowhere fast. I can tell you that, my friends. I can tell you the Steelers season is now over at 1-3 at Buffalo. Wait, this Steelers schedule, let me pull it up. They're 1-3 and they are in trouble. The Steelers are now officially in trouble. They haven't had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. I can guarantee you they will now, because they're 1-3. Then they're at Buffalo versus Tampa Bay, at the Dolphins, and then, oh, by the way, at your Philadelphia Eagles. Those are 4 games the Steelers should lose. They're 1-3. They should lose against the Bills. They should lose against the Bucs. I'll call the Dolphins a coin toss game. It's in Miami, and then they're in Philadelphia. If the Steelers go 1-3, it'll be a miracle. But at 1-3, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are cooked. And that's because he waited too long to go to Pickett. He failed to prepare him for this game against the Jets. Mike Tomlin deserves some criticism this week. Now, I told you on Friday that the Kansas City Chiefs being a 1-point favorite over the Bucs seemed like a little bit of a weird mismatch. The Chiefs had this game from the get-go, 41-31, 72 points scored in this game, but the Chiefs controlled this game from the gate, from the little razzle-dazzle Patrick Mahomes, spinorama, throwing up alley-oops, looking like Maurice Cheeks out there with the crossover, the spin move, the alley-oop to Kelsey. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, Maurice Cheeks, is there any difference over here? Whew. Jeremiah, I didn't forget about my homies. I never leave out my homies, who for me is still pound for pound the best player in the National Football League. Worth every penny of that $40 million plus contract is Patrick Mahomes. And 23 for 37, 249, 3 touchdowns. I got to say, though, Kelsey, I told you he'd be the 5th all-time receiving tight end. He's padding a Hall of Fame career. The Buccaneers, though, and Brady looks good on paper, 39 for 52, 385, 3 touchdowns. A lot of that was playing come from behind ball. Leonard Fournette, 3 carries. The Bucs ran the ball, I think, 5 times in this game. 3 carries for -3 yards. And Mike Evans was back from suspension. Chris Godwin was back from injury, but he got re-injured. Julio Jones is banged up. They've got guys like Cole Beasley. They just signed off the scrap heap. Russell Gage is like, their number 2 weapon. The Bucs are just, you saw it with Kelsey. Cameron Brate just isn't going to get the job done. You see the difference maker that the Chiefs have in Kelsey and the lack of difference maker that was one Rob Gronkowski that the Bucs no longer have. O.J. Howard no longer here. Cameron Brate just isn't going to get it done. I saw, you guys are getting on Goddard about a dropped ball. I saw Cameron Brate drop a costly touchdown that could have got the Bucs back in the game. And listen, it's an accumulation. Not having Gronk, the receivers are all banged up. Even Ronald Johnson, Rojo, was a valuable backup to Leonard Fournette. Now, Rachaad White, the rookies, played well. It's just not the same Bucs team. And that's why the Bucs, surprisingly, are still favored ahead of the Rams to win the NFC. But it's the Eagles, the Packers, the Bucs, the Rams, then the Vikings. The 49ers are nowhere to be found right now. But that's the way Vegas sees it. How does your boy RIC see it? I got my revised power rankings. I gave you a couple weeks off from the RIC power rankings. It was early in the year. Said, hey, let's not get too crazy. But we are now a quarter of the way through the season. 4 games in. 13 to go. So right around a quarter of the way in. Here's how I see it. You guys in the chat room can tell me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you will. Jeremiah or Pending Title or Ray or Scott or James. I'm sure somebody will let me know how wrong I am. But when I do my new power rankings, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are still the team to beat. I thought they dominated the Bucs last night. I know they lost against the Colts. They've been a little bit up and down, but Mahomes is still that X factor. And to me, he's the best player in the National Football League. So revamped O-line, revamped receiving corps, revamped backfield with Isaiah Pacheco in the mix. One thing remains the same. Patrick Mahomes is the best pound-for-pound player in the NFL. And so for me, the Chiefs are the team to beat. The Bills and Ravens, they played a coin toss kind of affair yesterday. To me, they're 2-3. The top 3 teams in the league all reside in the AFC. The Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. Say what you want. If we're playing one game on Sunday, those 3 teams are better than the Eagles today. I'm not talking about January. I'm not talking about February. I'm talking about today. The best 3 teams in the National Football League all reside in the AFC. It's the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. Give me any one of those 3 teams on Sunday against the Eagles, and I'll take their odds. Today. Not January, not February. Today. I've got the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, then the Eagles. I put the Rams and the Bengals 5th and 6th just off G because they were there last year. You're the champions until you ain't. We'll find out tonight. A little bit more clear picture of who the Rams really are. Ray says we can slice up the Ravens. Maybe. I've got questions about Lamar Jackson in the big game. I really do. I feel better about it than I do with Jalen Hurts, but Lamar's got the experience. The Ravens have a heck of a defense. I think the Eagles and Ravens are neck and neck. I think that would be a really, really, really down to the last possession kind of game if that was your Super Bowl. If it's the Chiefs or the Bills, I just don't think Hurts and the Eagles are ready for that yet. Not yet. That's big-time football. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Josh Allen and the Bills. That's big-time football. I think the Eagles are neck and neck with the Ravens. I give Lamar Jackson a slight edge in experience, but I think the Ravens and Eagles are right there neck and neck. I have the Rams and Bengals 5th and 6th, and then your NFC teams come into play. I got the Packers at 7. I got the 49ers at 8. And then the Tennessee Titans at 9. I think, they showed that they were the number 1 seed in the AFC for a reason last year. I don't want to discount the Titans just yet. I've got them lurking at 9. And listen, I know the Dolphins got off to an arousing start. Everybody should be excited, but this whole Tua situation has got me on pins and needles. That's the kind of injury that could shake, rattle, and roll a team and send them in the wrong direction. So I'll throw the Dolphins in at 10 for now because they're 3-1. I could see the Dolphins spiral out of control in the other direction. Pending title says Cowboys and Vikings are dark horses. Sure. I think the Vikings are pretenders. The Vikings, from what I saw against the Eagles, are not contenders. They are the ultimate pretenders. And if you want to put Kirk Cousins in the same category as Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, or Jalen Hurts, who are my top 3 NFC seeded teams, get out of town. Get out of town. Kirk Cousins ain't even in the same stratosphere. The Vikings are pretenders, not contenders. If Dak Prescott comes back to form, then the Cowboys have a shot. They're probably my 11th team. I probably like the Cowboys more than the Dolphins, but I put the Dolphins at 10 based on their record. I think Dallas is right there knocking on the top 10. So those are your RIC power rankings for week number 4 as we enter week number 5. By the way, did you see the double doink out in London? I forgot about that. The day started with kegs and eggs on Sunday. The double doink. Kirk Cousins escaping with the victory. And what a game that was to start your Sunday. What a game. London, I think is it Giants and Packers out in London this week? We'll find out. with our NFL insider, Howard Balzer. Of course, he covers the Cardinals for GoPhoenix.com. Oh, by the way, Eagles and Cardinals, Week 5 matchup. We've been talking Philly Dilly. We've been talking NFL. It's the football playbook. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we've got Philadelphia's finest, Howard Balzer, checking in. It's all brought to you by the Ocean Casino and Resorts. Make sure you hit the like button. We'll be back right after this.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown's 5-day used car super sale. Jeff puts an end to high prices now. 5 days of the best car, truck, and SUV deals ever. Over 1,000 vehicles, every make and model. Stop overpaying. See Jeff today and get a quality car, truck, or SUV now. The 5-day used car super sale. Experience how easy it is to deal at Jeff's. Nobody treats you better. Nobody gives you more. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. GoJeffAuto.com.
Score and save this football season on your car insurance. Before the next game, save up to 40% on your auto insurance policy. That's right, 40% savings. Call an Audible this season and contact the Del Val Insurance Group. They're an advocate for you, not an insurance company. That means they'll get you the right coverage and save you up to 40%. Call managing partners Fran or Jim of Del Val Insurance, 215-354-0122, or score and save at dvigi.com. dvigi.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Over the last 17 years, we've built a reputation of growing award-winning teams across the country. Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Fired up. We're rip roaring, ready to go here on the Football Playbook. RIC and the place to be here at the Jersey Shore. Ric Serritella tunnel, like it is when it comes to the NFL draft. Go check us out on NFLDraftBible.com. Since 2002, it's what we do. 400 plus scouting reports. Oh, by the way, your home for real football talk on the Football Playbook, brought to you by Ocean Casino Resorts, and your home for Philadelphia Eagles talk. And we are joined by none other than Philadelphia's finest, Howard Balzer, who joins us each and every Monday here on the Football Playbook out in the desert. Howard, good morning. Thank you for waking up with us here on the Football Playbook. And both of our bird squads getting off Sunday with the W. Of course, we'll get into the Eagles-Cardinals matchup this Sunday. But first off, you're on the Football Playbook, so we got to talk with some dirty birds, the Philadelphia Eagles, the only undefeated team in the NFL, Howard. It's the first time they've been 4-0 since 2004. Remember the days of Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens and all those NFC East championships? Well, the Eagles are kind of trending in that direction. Doug Peterson returns. They fall down early, 14-0. Nick Sirianni is the new Riverboat Ron. He's the gambling man, and the Eagles bounce back, 29 unanswered points. And this team is now the NFC favorites to win the NFC, according to Ocean Casino and Resorts, 3-1. They are your NFC favorites. What did you see from the Eagles yesterday?
Well, they're doing everything that you'd want, at this stage of the season. I love the odds. You know how I love them because, of course, all it would take is one loss, and all of a sudden, people are. I always point out that those making the odds, and right there at Ocean Casino, they do it. And obviously, they do it at many places. The odds are based on what people bet, and so when you look at like I think at one point a week or so ago, whatever, Tua had jumped up and everyone's going, oh, Tua is now one of the top choices for MVP. Well, what do bettors do, Rick? What do bettors do? They'll look at odds, and if they're thinking of betting on an MVP, then they'll look at those and they'll say, oh, look at this guy. He's 300-1, right? And he's playing pretty well. So we'll put a little on that. A nice long shot. Well, more people put the bet on the long shot, then all of a sudden the odds start going down because we know that those who post the odds want to try to get equal betting on both sides. So right now the Eagles, the only undefeated team. Everyone looks at the rest of the NFC and says, hey, I think there's a bunch of teams there that could be, the best in the NFC by the time we get to February. But right now, the Eagles are a very popular pick. They're playing well. And so people look at it and they see the odds and they say, oh, boy. So if you check the Eagles 3 weeks ago, what would they have been? Well, the odds aren't changed just because a team is winning. They're also changed because people are betting on them. And so the odds then go down because, like I said, the casino wants the other side. But, I mean, there's nothing bad you can say about the Eagles right now. And I think, too, something just hit me as you talked about Nick Sirianni, the Riverboat Ron and all that. I think what we're seeing, and I wrote something about this a couple of weeks ago when the Rams were playing the Cardinals, and we had Cliff Kingsbury and Sean McVay on opposite sidelines. And I wrote about all these young head coaches and the number of these young head coaches that have come into the league since Sean McVay was hired in 2017. And most of them are offense-oriented coaches. And so I think a lot of these younger guys, they look at things a lot differently than some of the old school coaches. And they're willing to take chances. The Cardinals, Rick, I think they had 2 fourth-down plays yesterday. The Cardinals coming into yesterday had 14 fourth-down attempts in the first 3 weeks of the season. And the team with the most after that was Detroit with 9. And so now they have, I think it's 16. I think they had 2 yesterday. So they've got 16, trying to get a first down on fourth down. And so we're seeing these younger coaches throw caution to the wind. Certainly analytics come into it, but a lot of it's just gut feeling, where it is in the game, where you are on the field, who the defense is, and all those things. So I think we're seeing that from a lot of these young coaches. And let's be honest, Rick, what was your reaction? And I wonder what everybody in Philly's reaction was when the Eagles hired Nick Sirianni. People probably said, who? Who's that? What are they doing? What are they, crazy? Well, we see from this tree of offensive coordinators that have come up and are now getting head coaching jobs, they're willing to take chances. But here's another part. You only take chances when you feel you have the personnel to do it. And the Eagles right now have some very solid personnel on that offensive side and a pretty good offensive line. So that gives you a lot of confidence in whatever you decide to do from play to play and game to game.
Yeah, I always say there's not enough Italian head coaches in the National Football League, Howard. And Nick Sirianni, I'll be the first to admit after that press conference, the initial press conference, I said, oh, who's this guy? What is Philadelphia thinking? This guy's way in over his head. But,
I mean, you look at a guy like Mike McDaniel. You look at a guy like Mike McDaniel in Miami. You see him in a press conference, and you see him there, and you're going, This is the kid who sat next to me in science class,
Yeah,
right? And always aced all the tests, and you wanted to cheat on because you had no clue what was going on in that class. That's what he looks
that was
like.
me.
But looks can be deceiving. You can't judge a book by its cover. I think that's been proven time and time again.
Absolutely. And Sirianni went for it on 4th down 4 times in the first half yesterday alone. So after the Cardinals and Lions, I would imagine Sirianni's up in there. But yeah, it's the influx analytics. The Eagles are a big believer in it. But I like the fact that Sirianni also, he doesn't just go by the book. He also says, like, hey, it's the ebb and flow of the game. It's the weather. It's the way the opposing is playing. So he also still sticks to his gut, but uses analytics as a decision maker. And I like that.
It's interesting. The game yesterday between the Ravens and the Bills, and of course, because it didn't work, John Harbaugh is, what was he doing? What was he doing there going for a touchdown? Well, his thinking on it, it's easy to say afterwards it wasn't the right decision, but his thinking on it, first of all, he was thinking that even if they missed it, then Buffalo was going to have the ball on the 2-yard line and would have to go a long ways. That doesn't mean they're not capable of doing it, but he certainly wasn't banking on Lamar Jackson throwing an interception there. That's one aspect of it. But the other point is this. He figured, I want to score a touchdown because if we score a field goal, well, first of all, when Buffalo gets the ball back, 25-yard line probably, then it's become a 4-down game there at that point. And the defense knows it, but the offense knows it because you're going for it on 4th down to try to move down the field. So all the way you do things is a little bit different. And he knew it would be a 4-down game if it failed, but he figured, hey, they're still going to have to go 98 yards or a lot less for a winning field goal. So he went with his gut. And I always love it when someone makes a decision like that and it works. Oh, wow, what a gutsy coach. What a gutsy coach. But then if it misses, everyone says, well, what were you doing? What were you thinking? Well, you can't have it both ways when at least you try to judge what the decision of the head coach was.
Howard Balzer, NFL Insider, GoPhoenix.com. Of course, he's got you covered for the Arizona Cardinals, front to back, left to right, north to east. We'll get into the Eagles and Cardinals matchup in a second. Just some other thoughts from around the league, Howard, here. Sticking with the NFC East, which is now, it has 3 teams with 3 wins or more. Cowboys at the Rams, I think, this upcoming week. The Giants will play the Packers out in London. The NFC East is suddenly become a team full of contenders here early on in the season. What do you make of the Dallas Cowboys? Cooper Rush, 4-0. The first undrafted free agent to win his first 4 starts since Kurt Warner. And then the Giants, say what you want. They keep beating up on bad teams, but they get the job done.
Yep.
Brian Daboll and Joe Shane have got something going on in the Giants, and Saquon Barkley looks like a born-again Christian there. What do you make of the Cowboys and Giants? Are they for real?
Well, I'm not so sure on the Giants, certainly yet, but they're doing what they have to do, and you're 100% right about Barkley. That's the key there. And of course, at the end of the game, near the end of the game, you had to play quarterback because both Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor were out. Certainly, they need. I believe they need Daniel Jones healthy, although Tyrod Taylor is a pretty good backup. But we'll see on the Giants. I mean, the Cowboys, they're always a team that you look at the roster and say, hey, this team has talent, but they always find ways to not get it done. And Cooper Rush is doing everything you could ask of him. Not only, as you mentioned, winning those first 4 starts as Kurt Warner did as an undrafted free agent. I believe he's the first quarterback ever to win his first 4 starts and have a passer rating of 90 or more in each of those games. By the way, as soon as I saw that yesterday, I said, well, hold it. What about Kurt Warner? And I saw all those games when he started out. His first game that he won against the Ravens, he was 88.2. So he was 1.8 less than 90. And then the next 3 games, a couple of them, he was in the 140s in the next couple of games. So, but, like I said, Cooper Rush knows the offense. I said at the beginning of the season when everyone was saying, oh, boy, they got to go out and get somebody. They got to do this and all these rumors. And I'm saying, hey, Cooper Rush knows the system. He knows what he's doing there. They've got good talent around them. Just don't make that mistake that beats you. That's basically what you want a guy to do in that position. And he's done everything that could be asked. So it'll be interesting when Prescott comes back, when Dak Prescott comes back, how will he be? He's going to be a little rusty. He's got to make sure his hand is okay. So, but this is a team that has talent. But like I said, they always seem to find a way, to have some issues. But overall, that NFC, I think overall is still up for grabs. Even though the Eagles right now are the only undefeated team, Aaron Rodgers seems to have a lot of ups and downs, but some of that's the talent around him. Can't count out the Buccaneers. You mentioned Matthew Stafford, and the Rams in that top group. It's going to be interesting tonight to see, because the 49ers have the Rams numbers. I think in the regular season. Of course, they lost in the NFC Championship game last year. I think it was the NFC Championship game, right? Whatever it was when the 49ers had them and lost the game. But I think in the regular season, the 49ers have beaten the Rams like 6 or 7 times in a row. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get better as he plays and gets into the rhythm, considering what his offseason and training camp were like. So I think there's a bunch of teams in the NFC that are still there going to make some noise. But the one big reaction, Rick, that I have from this league is that already this weekend in week 4, there have been 10 games decided by 1 score or less. 10. The NFL announced today that there's been 49 games that have been 1-score games in the fourth quarter. And that's the most in history after 4 weeks. And we'll see what happens tonight in the Rams and 49ers. But like I said, 39 games decided by 1 score or less. And looking at it a little deeper, there's been 22 decided by a field goal or less. So
I believe it.
That's the story of this league. It's close.
I believe it, because you know what?
Who wins the close games?
You know what? I was looking at the lines. The lines this Sunday, there was like maybe 1 or 2 games that had a lopsided point spread.
2.
Other than that,
you're right.
Yeah,
there were 2 that were, and they weren't even that big. One of them, I think the Packers were favored by 9.5 over the Patriots, and they covered. The Eagles were the other one. I think they were either 6.5 or 7 over Jacksonville, and every other game was 5 points or less, and there was a whole bunch of them that were a field goal or less.
And
so
even the point
reflects.
spread. I don't remember looking at the Vegas lines and saying almost every game was within 3 points or less.
Right.
Vegas was basically saying outside of 2 games this week, every game was a coin toss game.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it does come down to, like I was saying earlier, to the people who are putting the money down, and they're looking at these games and they're going, man, I don't know. And so they just decide which one they want to go with. But they don't. But when the lines are that low, they don't move that much during the week either, because hey, all the books, whether it's Vegas, wherever else, they're getting that close,
late money,
equal betting on both sides. And when that's the case, the books always win.
I'll tell you what, the Green Bay Packers barely beat Bailey Zappi-led New England Patriots team. They were double-digit points. They could barely beat the third-string quarterback. The Bucs look outmatched against Kansas City last night, and we'll get into the Monday Night Football affair with the Rams. But there's a reason why the Eagles are now the favorite to win the NFC. They take on the Cardinals this week, traveling across the country. Cardinals getting off the snide and beating up on the Panthers this week. Still without DeAndre Hopkins, the Cardinals have kind of been piecing together this offensive receiving corps. But, I alluded to it in the first hour of the show. Anytime you face Kyler Murray, this team is capable of putting a lot of points up on the board. It could turn into a track meet. Let's look ahead to this upcoming Sunday matchup. What do you can tell us about these Arizona Cardinals? What should the Eagles expect on Sunday?
Well, the fortunate thing for the Cardinals yesterday, Rick, was that they had another very poor beginning of the game. The first 4 drives, I wouldn't even call them drives. I had to call them possessions because they didn't drive anywhere. The first 4 possessions, they had 17 plays for 60 yards. And we're 0 for 4 on third down. And that's been their bugaboo earlier this season. They were fortunate in this game because Carolina's offense was so bad, and everyone's hailing the Cardinals defense, and it played well, but that Panthers offense isn't very good. And the key was that the Cardinals didn't give up many rushing yards to Christian McCaffrey. He only had 7 carries for 22 yards, so that was huge for the Cardinals. So what happened? So even though the Cardinals got off to that bad start offensively, they didn't fall behind by a lot. They did fall behind on an interception by Murray on a pick 6, but it was never more than a 1-score game, which the earlier games they've played, the first 3, they were out of hand pretty early. And then the offense came on in the second half, played well. So that's what everyone's wondering. When is this offense going to play in the first half like it's played in the second half at times? They did against the Rams the week before. They had some long drives, but they weren't able to score in the red zone and had 4 field goals. But they were able to get touchdowns in this game yesterday. So that's going to be, to me, the key in this game against the Eagles is that defense holding down or trying to contain Jalen Hurts in that offense, because that offense has showed it can score quickly. It can do a lot of different things. The Cardinals are hoping to get back Antonio Hamilton this week from the reserve list, because now this week, by the way, everybody out there, after 4 games, players that were placed on that short-term injured reserve list can come back. They need him in the secondary to supplement what they have. So that's going to be the key to me. That's going to be the key is going to be whether the Cardinals can hold down that Eagles offense, especially what they're able to do passing, and can the offense be more consistent? Those are the things that the Cardinals have to do to be able to spring an upset here. I saw some of the early numbers. The Eagles on the road, a 5-point favorite. So that's a pretty high number for a road team. So, yeah. And here's another thing: the Cardinals have lost, going back to last season, 7 consecutive home games. And
wow,
7 consecutive home games.
Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts has won 7 in a row.
So there we go.
Lucky 7s.
And they're very cognizant of that. And I think maybe sometimes they think maybe too much of it, and they want to maybe try too hard at home because they want to give the home fans something to cheer about. And then, like I said, they get off to that bad start. If you give up some scores, then all of a sudden you're in a hole. And that's what happened in the 2 home games this year against Kansas City and the Rams. So playing another very good offensive team now. So they're going to be challenged in this one.
Yeah, talking to Howard Balzer, GoPhoenix.com for all your Cardinals coverage. Of course, Eagles Cardinals this week, longtime NFL Hall of Fame voter. And, in order for the Cardinals to stop that Eagles offense, a lot of it will come down to the one and the only J.J. Watt, who had a weird tweet before the game. I didn't hear, he said he was alerted of a report that was going to be national news, and he had some kind of heart procedure. I didn't really see the national report that was supposed to blow up in the media, but I saw the tweet on game day morning. I thought it was a little bit awkward or out of place. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty strange story, like you said, and how he would have gotten wind in the early morning of a game that somehow what happened to him during the week was going to be leaked and reported on. I don't know how he would have found out that. That's what he claimed. He was very upset by it. He had a very emotional post-game press conference where on 2 occasions he was on the verge of tears, and his lips were actually quivering as he spoke. And essentially what happened was he felt something weird in his heart, his heartbeat. It was just strange. He went and got it checked out, and they found that his heart was out of rhythm. And so he had what he described as an AFib, which is atrial fibrillation, I think it is, where they shock the heart back into its normal rhythm. And he talked about the emotion of it. He and his wife are expecting their first child in only a couple of weeks. And he said after the game, he said, we've been getting ultrasounds, all the time for this baby. Now here I am getting an ultrasound for my heart. And he says, I've never been scared of an injury. I've never been scared of pain. I've never been scared of surgery, but this was scary. And so he let it all out. And there were some who questioned him playing in the game, but he was clear. Doctor said, hey, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and play, because this might happen. Who knows? It might happen in a day. It might not never happen again. It might happen in 20 years. If you feel comfortable. And his comment was, I'd be more uncomfortable sitting on the couch at home watching the game, knowing the doctor said it was okay to play. And he had a great game. In fact, he had a deflected pass. Yeah, 2 of them in the game, but one deflected one was intercepted in Carolina territory and led to a big touchdown. So he had a heck of a game. But that's essentially the story in a nutshell. I have a whole lot about it. If people want to go to gophnx.com with all his talk after the game. And of course, I turned it into a song, Rick, from the great show, Damn Yankees. Of
course you did.
Damn Yankees, you got to have heart, miles and miles and miles of heart. Well, that team played with some heart yesterday, and J.J. Watt did also, obviously. And we'll see if they can continue it going against a very tough team in the Eagles next Sunday.
Yeah, just a bizarre story, and I'm not sure if I ever saw that national media story that he was talking about ever get published or not. But
well, I think what he was claiming, he wanted to get out ahead of it. He supposedly had word that it was going to be leaked, and so he decided to tweet it and just say what happened, so that would beat the report, and no one would have to report it when he tweeted it. So again, I don't know how he knew that it was about to be reported. Did someone call his agent for confirmation? I don't know. He also said, Rick, that how upset he was. He says, only people I trusted knew about this, and he thought this was out of bounds when you're supposedly going to report something as personal as that. But of course, people he trusted, but I'm sure the team knew it. Obviously, a lot of people knew about it. So if it was truly leaked, we don't really know. But that's what he believed was going to happen.
Time flies when I'm talking football with Howard Balzer, longtime NFL insider, Hall of Fame voter, of course, Cardinals beat reporter for Go Phoenix, gophnx.com. I want to ask you so much more, Howard. We probably only have 30 seconds or so, unfortunately. I know you have your finger on the pulse with the NFC West. Give us a quick little synopsis and prediction for this Rams at 49ers tonight on ESPN at 8:15.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot will depend on how Jimmy Garoppolo plays and that 49er defense, holding down the Rams. I think the Rams have some questions on offense. They still have Cooper Kupp, obviously, but some of the other receivers are just okay. They didn't play that well offensively against the Cardinals last week. So I think the key to this game, like I said earlier, the 49ers have the Rams number, and so it'll come down to Garoppolo and how that defense does against the Rams. So it should be a very interesting game tonight on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, of course, we'll come back tomorrow and Tuesday and talk about it here on the Football Playbook. But each and every Monday is Howard Balzer time. So gracious and kind enough to give us his time out in the desert. We'll come back next Monday, Howard, and see which Bird Gang gets the W. But always appreciate the time, my man, and make sure you get some rest out there in the desert.
We'll do that, Rick. Take care.
All right, there you go. Howard Balzer, always with his finger on the pulse when it comes to the National Football League. Of course, I was Ric Serritella here on the Football Playbook. This was our 25th show. Did you like it? Did you smell it? Did you sniff it? Show your boy some love. Smash the like button. We got Sports Take coming up at noon Eastern. Of course, Rob Ellis, Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks taking you up till 3 o'clock, followed by Dan Cilio, the National Football Show. Tomorrow, we are scheduled to have Darren Urban, longtime Cardinals beat reporter, as well as Ed Kratz here on Tuesday for our 26th episode. It's all brought to you by Ocean Casino Resorts. Our producer behind the scenes and sometimes on the scene, Tone DeShields, tells me I have to wrap it up. So again, thank you to everybody who tuned in and watched and listened and interacted in the chat room. One last time for your boy. Show your boy some love. Hit the like button. If you have the autoplay on in the chat or the YouTube channel, you can stay right here. It'll carry over to Sports Take. Otherwise, we'll be back at it again tomorrow. We'll try to do better the next time. Thank you for tuning in. This was Ric Serritella on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.